Good afternoon. This is again Dr. Robert Pelley, and this is the second installment of Module 1 for the Econ 24001 class at Fisk University. Yesterday, we talked about just what is economics. And in the discussion yesterday, we talked about economics, a social science that deals in human behavior and choices that decision makers are involved in on a daily basis. And since that discussion, I've had a couple of people reach out to me and say, okay, what differentiates economics as a social science from, say, political science, sociology, history, geography? All of those social sciences are involved with individuals and their behavior and making choices. So I thought I'd spend a few minutes today just talking about basic economic thought. And as you remember from the discussion yesterday, economics is concerned with decision makers making choices based on a set of predetermined constraints of scarce resources. We're talking about land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. And what we're looking at is three things that really define economic thought. One is opportunity cost. One is that decision makers are self-centered and they make self-interest decisions based on optimization. And the third part is decision makers typically make their decisions on what's best at that particular time based on a decision at the margin. Yesterday, we talked about opportunity cost, and we spent a few minutes talking about opportunity cost and then the definition of opportunity cost, which basically is nothing more than individuals making choices among alternatives or different options, making a selection of their preferred choice, and then looking at the value of the next best alternative if you were to take and reallocate those scarce resources. And as we talked about yesterday also, opportunity cost is not always monetarily driven. There are other opportunities that individual decision makers are involved in that will base their opportunity cost. It's more on satisfaction or benefits from consuming a good and service. A couple of quick examples are along the lines of, I was a TA at Ohio State during my graduate school studies, and I always knew that the class, if I taught class in the fall quarter, on Friday afternoon before a home football game in Columbus, that class attendance was going to be fairly sparse. People were skipping Friday afternoon classes. They were getting ready for the football game. Not necessarily a monetary driver, but it was a driver in their perspective from satisfaction and benefits of, getting ready for the game. Winter quarter, dreary, terrible weather in Columbus. Class participation was really excellent during winter quarter because there really wasn't much else to do. You saw the similar phenomena in the fall and the spring as the weather started to break, kids started getting ready to go on spring break. And as a professor or as a TA, you knew that as you got closer to spring and it's getting closer to that summer quarter, that class attendance was going to be sparse. So that is a benefit satisfaction type opportunity cost. If you flip that around, let's say you're a individual in Nashville that has a very successful food truck, and you have decided that there's an opportunity to buy a permanent location, or you have enough capital to take and set up a second food truck. And based on your analytical expertise, you decide to go with the second food truck rather than the permanent location for a restaurant. At that point, your opportunity cost is going to be the value that you forego buying that second or opening that second food truck as opposed to opening a bricks and mortar restaurant to help expand your business. So just keep in mind, those are among the scarce resources that individuals are looking at when it comes to opportunity cost. Because remember, an opportunity cost or an economics just in general what is it we have? Unlimited wants, limited resources. The second thing that people focus on if you're talking about economic thought is you're talking about self-interested individuals optimize. Optimization can be maximization if it's a good or a desirable good or service. It can be minimization if it's an undesirable good or service. And most people, when they are talking about optimization, are really focused on what economists call utility. And again, as we discussed yesterday, utility is nothing more than the value of satisfaction benefits from consuming that good or service. If you're a business owner, you are trying to optimize or trying to maximize revenues or trying to maximize profits. If you're a government agency and you are providing a public good, you're trying to maximize the number of individuals that can be serviced or exposed or benefit from that public good. Yesterday, we talked about Fisk University, and we talked about Meharry that's right across the street from Fisk. And if you're looking at Meharry, they may be, the decision makers at Meharry may be trying to determine based on their budget and based on land, labor, capital, and their ability to function as entrepreneurs, they're trying to determine how they can maximize the benefits of that budget and also at the same time maximize the number of individuals that they can provide goods and services to, whether in the short run or the long run. And lastly, choices are at the margin. And if you remember from if you've had microeconomics, either in high school or maybe already in a college class, entities will produce at that point as long and keep producing at that point as long as marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost. If you're an individual, let's say you're a student at Fisk and trying to decide, again, between studying and reading the information for this class or going to a fraternity party, you're going to make your decision based on your marginal utility as long as it's greater than marginal cost. A good example that you hear people talk about is if you go to the gym and you go through a strenuous workout, and as you're leaving the gym, there is a sign that says bottle of water, $1. So you're thirsty, you pay the first $1, you drink your bottle of water, you decide, maybe I'm going to get a second bottle of water. You buy that second bottle of water for $1, you drink it, you're starting to quench your thirst. And then the decision at that point becomes, do you spend a third $1 to buy a third bottle of water, or do you go home and drink water that is, that you can get from a spigot or what you have stored at your home? So those are what you're talking about, buying things at the margin. Another example and I think they use this in the textbook, is when you're talking about meal options. So you pull up to White Castle in Nashville, and you start placing your order, and it's like you want hamburgers and French fries and something to drink, and they say, well, if you get meal number one, you can get what you wanted. If you buy it individually, it's $10, and if you get meal number one, it's only $8. And you decide on meal number one, they say, oh yeah, and while you're at it, if you want to add cheese to the burgers, you can get it at a reduced cost. And if you decide you want some kind of a dessert at White Castle, you can get it at a reduced cost. So you as an individual at that point are faced with, I've got $10 in my pocket. I can get this meal for, if I buy number one, it's $8. And then I've got another $2 that I can spend on dessert, or I can spend on putting cheese on the burgers or whatever. And at the end of the day, you feel like your perception in your mind is at the margin, you're much better off, because for that same $10 bill, buying it as a bundle or a package, you're much better off. You're much better satisfied, and you view the benefit as being much better. And economists are notorious for the old more is preferred to less. Again, unlimited wants, limited resources, more is preferred to less, and that's just basic human nature if it is a desirable good. I'd like to try to tie these three things together in such a way as you might understand it from the perspective of a business or somebody working in a business. So I managed a payment integrity team at Blue Cross Blue Shield in Buffalo. I had about 100 individuals working for me, and I had an annual budget of X number of dollars. And every time I looked at a diverse number of projects, it was going through my mind: opportunity cost, optimization, functioning at the margin. There were certain instances where I could bring on a new project, but I knew that to bring on this new project, I was going to have to forego and shuffle opportunities at a current project or another future project. If I tried to optimize the total dollars that I recovered from mispaid healthcare claims, and that was my optimization, I knew I had to take and structure it in such a way that I could maximize that optimization, maximize the dollars I brought in. And to do that, I was constantly shifting resources from one position to the next. And then lastly, based on the return on investment, and if you're not familiar with that term, return on investment, it's a financial term that merely means what's going to be the payback for determining or deciding to move in a future project or a current project. And it's usually calculated based on benefits minus cost in the numerator and the cost in the denominator. So I was constantly looking at the margin, if I brought on a new individual, or if I took and shifted an individual from a current project to a new project, I was constantly looking at the margin, how is that going to impact my return on investment? If I brought on a new, and I basically had analysts and medical staff in the form of nurses, if I brought on a new nurse to review medical records or healthcare claims, at the margin, how much was I going to improve my return on investment? And I had it worked out with the individuals that I reported to that as long as I could have a return on investment of 5 to 1, they would gladly bring on any number of individuals that I decided to bring on to increase the size and the scope of my team. Unfortunately, in Western New York, the talent pool was a little shallow. So it was difficult to bring those on, even though the return on investment was there. So trying to bring economic thought together, that's what we're looking at as economists. Opportunity cost, self-interested in optimization, and making decisions based at the margin. That's it for this afternoon's discussion. I'll see you tomorrow for the third installment in Module 1. Thank you.